We've still got quite a decent amount of time until our next major update for Arc Raiders, but while the immediate future may be uncertain, the road to where we'll go, we have a decent amount of clues for both this next major update and the next map addition, as well as further beyond. Today I want to take some time to discuss what that future may look like and what we may be able to find in our next destination's topside. Drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Arc Raiders and even more FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG, where Code Espresso can get you 10% off your entire order. But for now, let's get into it. So here's what we know so far. It was a relatively hefty wait that players had between our last map, pre-Riven Tides to Riven Tides, right? I mean, Stellamontis capitalized on the launch hype of the game and was the map for most types of playstyles for quite some time, becoming the de facto labs from Tarkov or something similar, where it was known as like the hotspot. And following the launch of the game, that first few months of play where everyone was still learning the ropes, it held up. But as time progresses on, as players learn more and more about the game and run out of new experiences to encounter, new things to learn about the game, and so on, the focus turns to what's next for a map. Because it had been quite a long time, 5 months and 15 days to be exact, from Stellamontis to Riven Tides. So not ideal when you want to keep the hype up from the launch when players are looking for more and more to do, but on the bright side, with the Riven Tides update being the last of the, at the time, known roadmap, surely we'd end up getting more information about the future soon after that point when it came to what's next, and hopefully with a better launch cadence of maps. Now, unfortunately, we know that that's not exactly what happened. About 2 weeks after the launch of Riven Tides, a blog post went out detailing the future of Arc Raiders content, and the plans weren't quite what people hoped. They said, going forward, we've made the decision to release major updates twice a year, larger in scale, more impactful, with a goal to genuinely change how you play the game. Now, the slight silver lining was that we at least weren't left completely in the dark. They previewed a little bit of that next major update and map introduction that is coming in October. The silver lining that we knew of was that major update would be coming with things like a new arc operation, new progression systems, improvements to the skill tree, new lore elements, new weapons, items, instruments, and so on. So a lot of foundational stuff mixed in with things you'd probably expect to see out of a content update, but things like progression and skill tree improvements were definitely, they're foundational to how you engage with the game. But additionally, Frozen Trail was listed as a new map, where it said explore a new landscape in the Rust Belt with layered design and new mysteries to uncover in the largest map in the game. So the largest map in the game, quite interesting to hear about, but was there anything else that we could maybe bank on beyond that? Well, officially speaking, perhaps not, but there has been, as with Riven Tides, some concept art that's out there that pre-release of Arc Raiders showcased some snowy environments. Problem is, we've already seen one map set in the snowy mountains, even if we don't necessarily get reminded of it with every square inch of the map. Stellamontis is in a mountainside facility that, to me, renders a couple of these images we've seen pre-launch with concept art kind of irrelevant. Obviously, the loading bay one deals with Stellamontis, the snow-covered observatory top. That one's not accessible by regular play, but it is something that players have glitched into that observatory dome, not to mention it's visible in the Stellamontis cutscene. Another one is an early concept of the Seed Vault, but then there's one that could be up in the air, and another one that I squarely think could be our next hint as to what's upcoming. The one I think could be up in the air is there's an approaching raider that could be taking a frozen trail, but also it could be a raider outside of one of the set pieces of Stellamontis, reminding me a bit of that side room in Medical that overlooks the mountain ranges. But one I think is absolutely related, this one being a raider on a black sandy beach surrounded by glacial remnants at the ocean side. This very clearly not Stellamontis, nor is it anywhere we've seen before, but it doesn't offer a whole ton off of where we could be in the first place. Like, where at in the Rust Belt are we going to be? The most obvious and not so condensed area of the map that we have still is the volcano rise in the southwestern portion of the Rust Belt's main map, but it's a volcano. So could it be dormant? Is it active? There is concept art that appears to showcase a volcano, so it might not even be in that area, but if dormant, it could be a snow-covered frozen trail perhaps. The Rust Belt is modeled after the greater Naples area in Italy, so Mount Vesuvius could be sporting a nice coat of snow at that peak. Stellamontis is up in the mountain range of the northeast, so perhaps it's adjacent to that, though Stella lies beyond the Rust Belt ridge, so who knows? Or perhaps it's our first look elsewhere, because while listed in the Rust Belt, what if it's on the edge of that Rust Belt? Because Embark has recently mentioned we will be expanding in the future beyond what we see now in that Rust Belt. Now, before we get into that, a quick heads up, we've partnered with my friends over at Advanced GG, a bit under the radar here the last few months, but ramping things up going into the summer. Advanced is the healthier energy supplement option. I use it daily as my comparable cup of coffee. Currently, I'm drinking the raspberry lemonade and magic rainbow sherbet. Those are my two favorite flavors I'd highly recommend, and actually on that note, we've co-branded the rainbow sherbet along with a few other items on their site like a 26-ounce ice shaker. But for real, love this stuff, use it every day. So if you're looking for your own replacements for a cup of coffee, give this a try. If you decide to give it a go, code Espresso and get 10% off your entire order, but absolutely no pressure at all. Appreciate you hearing me out on this and supporting the channel by just being here. But anyways, let's get back to it. So expanding beyond the Rust Belt. Now, Screen Rant did a nice piece with Alexander Grundle, executive producer at Embark, who shared a bit of insight into the concepting and plans for future maps beyond just Frozen Trail and where we'll go from here. He first started out with, we have a lot of concepts for future maps and several in production. Expect Raiders to travel beyond the confines of the Rust Belt and see whole new parts of the Arc Raiders world. So what we currently see isn't where we'll always be, it seems like. I think that's kind of a logical assumption and sentiment, but at the same time, it's probably not one that you consciously think about, as the last 7 months of the game, since the game's launch, we've all been in that same location. All 6 maps currently are situated squarely in that Rust Belt, but even logically so, eventually we'll run out of UI space and elements to work with tags for every map's main offering and then a condition upcoming. It's already quite cluttered and will seemingly add another one with Frozen Trail, given that's listed still as a new landscape in the Rust Belt. I'm personally interested in seeing what that distant future may hold, because with this, do we see the map zoom out a little bit and things become a little bit smaller where you have more icons to the north and east and everything like that? Or does it become a bit interactable? Like, can you drag over from where we're at now to maybe north or northeast of the playable zones to accommodate future maps? Or could we perhaps have a blank slate where year 2, 2.5, or 3 just says so long to the Rust Belt and we move on to another 4 to 5 maps all at once? While purely speculative, I think that's a fascinating idea and perhaps would be a great refresh for the game to do at some point. When we all want to think about, oh, there's not too much to explore, not too much to learn about the game, we've put 400 plus hours, we basically know every inch of this into that experience. Imagine we get a heads up that at some point in the future, Arc is just basically rewriting everything that we know of the world that we can explore. Instead of just dropping one map at a time, what if it's 5 to relearn and there's no fallback of just going back to buried city runs or something like that? We go off to an entirely new area, all brand new to learn for players. Kind of like an Arc Raiders 2 with a brand new world to explore without having to buy an Arc Raiders 2. You have to learn this whole new world, thrown into it, learning the new loot zones, the spawns, arc pathing, best locations to set up an ambush on other raiders, Easter eggs, high tier loot spawns, all that kind of stuff. While perhaps unlikely, I don't think it's necessarily out of the ordinary to consider that. I mean, with the content cadence of every 6 months for this major update, and thus likely a new map at this point based off of what we've seen from Stella Montis to Riven Tides to now then Frozen Trails, to have that kind of window and say there are several in production, like absolutely it could be a matter of pre-production, basic outlining that's considered production, but also, what if not? Wishful thinking, I know, but it would be cool. The most likely explanation for the quote is that we're working on multiple maps in advance, but I'm quite curious to see what that will look like when all is said and done and where they end up taking us in relation to just how we interact with the game. Philosophically, they know that the maps are the most requested of large-scale content, saying Embark will continue to add them, and that that's something they're continuously discussing in the team. How to create interesting challenges that invite the players to think and strategize a bit differently than they are used to. So there is the meaning behind how they want to create the maps. Riven Tides is perhaps the first, but perhaps not the perfect example to stick the landing on it, but where they wanted to make a map with players to explore, but plenty of threats as well. Say what you will about the core of the Riven Tides experience. Like me, personally, I didn't think the looting areas were all that great. I thought they were a little too spread thin. Too much dead space in between those larger, but not super dense clusters of loot potential, with the highest density areas of the hotel being about 50% locked off from everyday use without specific keys. But it certainly felt different compared to other maps that we had up until that point. We saw the threats of the Arc were certainly real when it came to what we had with other maps since its launch. And I would still say that to this day, if you're trying to end up just farming larger Arc engagements or even just Arc cores in general, Riven Tides is one of the best go-tos because there's that higher density, whether in standard Night Raid, or any other major or minor map condition, it is something that has the most of those that forces you to play a different way. So in their philosophy, it seems like not only maps they want to take us to different vistas, but they also would very much so like to see a different challenge of some kind, putting the player in a situation they may not necessarily be used to and seeing how they can evolve their playstyle around that. But anyways, a quick little glance into the plans and potential future for where Arc Raiders may go in relation to map design, location, and philosophy that I do hope we learn a bit more about in depth in the coming months here leading up to the October update and where we see beyond that. But for now, just wanted to share this with you. I wanted to touch on this closer to when this article came out, but I haven't quite had the opportunity to do so yet, but want to share that with you. Let me know your thoughts down below. What would you like to see out of future worlds and future maps? Would you like to potentially see a brand new refresh of 5 maps at once, getting rid of the current experiences that we have some point down the line to basically be like an Arc Raiders 2.0? Would you like to see that? Let me know. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Arc Raiders and even more FPS content I'd love to have in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.